Rich people. I have got to work on these video introductions. I made a video quite a while back about the tragic rich kids of Miraculous Ladybug. Going off my memory, I believe it was meant to highlight how miserable money tends to make people in fictional stories. I mean, I had been under the impression that when you have a lot of money, you can do whatever you want, but somehow it always manages to feel restrictive. Ironically enough though, sometimes that money and the power it comes with needs to be accessible as a plot device to make the story go forward. But there's another kind of rich character that comes to mind, the spoiled sweet. This is a character who's rich yet doesn't seem to have any emotional baggage due to it and is just really nice and generous. At worst, they are simply oblivious about the class differences that exist between them and their friends. Momo Yaoyorozu from My Hero Academia is one. Archie Comics' Veronica Lodge also comes to mind. So do a few Disney princesses, and yet the first of this kind of character I ever encountered wasn't actually the Disney princess of her movie. Charlotte La Bouff, or Lottie from The Princess and the Frog. It would have been so easy to make Charlotte an antagonist. In fact, that was apparently the first draft. There's practically a blueprint for jealous rich girl character embedded in everyone's consciousness with all the media we've consumed. But she isn't. Oddly, Charlotte reminds me of Yuno from Black Clover, in that the archetype they are part of that's usually antagonistic is subverted by their childhood with the main character. Yuno is practically Asta's twin brother, which makes their rivalry a lot more wholesome than normal, and honestly probably more wholesome than most rivalries between brothers in real life. And as we see in the very first scene, Charlotte is Tiana's childhood friend, as they interacted a lot while Tiana's mom, Eudora, got paid to make dresses for her by Big Daddy. Did you know his name is Eli? Going entirely off the movie, Tiana might very well be Charlotte's closest friend. I mean, they call each other Tia and Lottie. There's an immediate recognizable difference between the girls as they listen to the fairy tale, The Princess and the Frog. Okay, so there are two possibilities. Either Dr. Facilier was inspired by the story when he cursed Naveen, or the story was inspired by a similar spell that was performed a long time ago. The latter is more likely, and both have mildly interesting implications that I'm sure someone else has explored. While both girls know how the story goes, Charlotte is too busy being swept into the fairy tale as a concept to be disgusted by the idea of kissing a frog like Tiana. And Charlotte's able to keep what I can only call her sense of wonder even going into her... How old are these characters? 19? Okay, into her late teens, as her dream of marrying a real prince is still on her mind, especially with one on the way to New Orleans, Prince Naveen. Lottie is admittedly a lot, but she is entertaining to watch, excitable and funny, and she plays the role of the comic relief character, at least before the animals show up. She also plays a fall for the more down-to-earth Tiana in their desires and how they approach them. Honestly, I could probably make a whole other video analyzing the way the characters interact with the theme of this movie. Lottie wants to marry Prince Naveen, and you can tell it's because she thinks it'll be the most romantic and fantastical thing to ever happen. Ironically, the only one who'd be marrying for money is Naveen. Lottie's idealization of the idea of marrying a prince is basically the reaction classic Disney wanted from their fans, which makes her excitement so meta to watch. And to help with that goal, she basically asked Tiana to cater for her ball, pretty much throwing all the money she needs to finally open her restaurant at her and kicking the plot into gear. Now I've seen people float an interesting idea about this moment. After all, Tiana is friends with the richest family in the city, so some feel the need to ask why she can't get their help to buy what she wants. We do see that Eli is pretty generous with his wealth, but that's countered by the fact that Tiana's pretty prideful in her work ethic and would probably never ask for help if she thinks she can do it herself, eventually. These ideas all coalesce into a new idea, that Lottie purposefully overpaid her friends so she could pursue her dreams. A theory bolstered by how excited she responds to Tiana's declaration that she can finally open her own restaurant. The idea has merit, and it's adorable. I wouldn't bet on it being the writer's express intent, and it could very well just be Lottie following her father's footsteps of overpaying for stuff, but it's not hard to believe when you consider how Lottie interacts with Tiana during the party. When Tiana falls into the food, Lottie takes a break from her attempt to seduce Prince Naveen, in order to help her friend, and even gives her a dress that she could wear as a replacement. Now, I don't know much about women's dresses, but I do know a few things about character motivations and character design, and I find it hard to believe that Lottie just so happened to have a dress that would perfectly fit Tiana in a completely different color than her usual style that just happened to complement Tiana, that she immediately thought to give to Tiana by complete coincidence. I mean, it might have just been a plot device that the creators made to get Tiana in the dress with no thought put into it, but I'm putting thought into it. An important factor is that the movie never tries to portray Charlotte as perfect. It's part of her role as the comedic relief, but she is quite naive and very spoilt, with a tendency to hyper-focus on what she wants. Not so much that she can't stop to help her friend, but enough that she doesn't know how down Tiana was emotionally while doing so. But if anything, these flaws only make her better traits more prominent than they would be if she was perfect. I call it the Amaryllis effect. Lottie's romanticization even plays a part in her decision to kiss Naveen with no strings attached, because she's clearly just in love with the idea of a fairy tale love, and she's just happy for her friend finding one for herself. Now, of course, there's one thing about this movie I feel it'd be dishonest to not address. 1920. In a movie focusing on African Americans. Unsurprisingly, the portrayal of Charlotte and her father and their relationship with Tiana's family has raised a few eyebrows. And in this movie where the main character and the prince from a faraway land spend most of the runtime as frogs with their trumpet playing alligator sidekick, it does feel a bit fantastical. Okay, all that aside, I think the context of racism actually makes the Bouffs more rounded as characters. I mean, consider this. Not every white person was racist back then. And if someone is going to successfully raise a spoiled little girl in what seems to be a single parent household, otherwise why wasn't her mom at her wedding, to treat those with less money with at least some respect, it's not surprising he'd be ahead of his time in recognizing that black people are indeed people too. Big Daddy is just a good person with a lot of money and power who has successfully raised a good daughter. It is rather ironic that this video started with a mention of Miraculous Ladybug. Believe it or not, I've been planning this since May. While the movie does go out of its way to not overtly bring up racism, with the most blatant discrimination coming from the real estate agents, I think what we see is enough to assume that this is not an alternate dimension of pure equality between the races. Charlotte actually rides the line between supporter and falling into the white savior trope quite well in my opinion. Like I said, money and power is very often a plot device that can make the plot go forward, but it can also in some cases just stop the plot from even happening in the first place. Charlotte obviously wants to help what may very well be her best friend, but the story is smart to not let her solve all of Tiana's problems, even when she wants to. Sure, she gives her a dress when her outfit is ruined, but that doesn't really solve her current problems. It just sets off her adventure as a frog. She's willing to kiss Naveen, no strings attached, but the timing allowed for the movie to keep going. The only time Charlotte could really be considered to be solving Tiana's problems is paying her for her services before the movie's plot even kicks off, which may or may not have been on purpose. And even then, there were still the problems of actually buying the location. Fortunately, Tiana has a scaly savior with many sharp teeth. You know, I honestly never realized how instrumental Charlotte is in driving the plot. Her infatuation with the idea of marrying a prince gets Tiana the money she needs and gives the Shadow Man the idea for his plot. Her dress gets Tiana turned into a frog, and her temporary identity as a princess makes her the protagonist's goal. She's a really good plot device. Ultimately, Charlotte's a picture of innocence and desire who's able to come off as supportive without interfering in the plot or being any less of her own character, or being anything close to some sort of caricature, either as a perfectly helpful person or as an antagonist. She's pretty much the most surprising character in the movie from the point of view of someone seeing it for the first time. It's not surprising that she's managed to gather herself more than a few fans. If you like Charlotte LaBouffe or this video, tell me your thoughts down below, and don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more content. Thank you and good day.